Hey Georgia, as I just left you a phone message saying this, I probably am not going to be able to talk to you tonight because it's 6 o'clock and I need to do other things tonight, like pack to go to Texas pretty early in the morning. But before I go, I thought I would make a quick video walkthrough since you have said that those can sometimes be helpful. Um, so I've read your chapter 3, and there's a lot of good things in chapter 3. I have some idea, I think, of what you want to do, and I can see your way forward, and hopefully I can give you some guidance on that. Um, Now, I have written a case study. I'm happy to provide you with a link to mine, or a copy of it, and anybody can see it. It's in the dissertation database, through UWG. So I was always downloading examples of studies when I had to write sections because it's the only way you'll know how to do it. And I can tell you've looked at examples as well. But if you want to see an example, I'm happy to just send you my file. You can also look at other examples. When I was looking at my chapter 3, one of the very first things I mentioned in that chapter was that, like Merriam and Creswell say, that there's not one way to write a qualitative procedure, which is true. There's not one way to do it. So it kind of depends on the study, like what needs to be mentioned in that study. But there are some things that are common. So I'm going to give you some specific ideas. And I pulled from my like on the left, I've got your actual paper. On the right, and well, it comes down here below. And then on the right, I've got my suggestions. And at the bottom of my suggestions document, I've actually kind of went through my chapter 3, and I actually removed a lot of the subheadings, but I just kind of showed you kind of the way I organized it into headings and some subheadings and then some sub-subheadings, going down those levels. I think my chapter 3 goes all the way down to using level 5 headings. You do want to use very specific headings in this section. You really want to use it throughout the whole paper. The more headings you use, the more, I think, nuanced your writing, but also the easier it is for your reader to follow you, as long as a heading is warranted. So I do provide that as an example, but that's something that your chapter 3 is currently lacking, is a sense of clear organization. The beginning, you're talking about methods and procedures. You put your subjectivity statement here, but really that subjectivity statement can go near the end where you're doing this kind of thing. I know in your chapter 3 you do the same thing. You put sort of this trustworthiness of the data type of section. And so subjectivities can go in that end section. That's not a big deal. I make a suggestion that you might maybe consider putting those research questions at the end of chapter 2. I'm not actually clear if there's like a rule about where these go in the school improvement program, but I think typically research questions do go at the end of chapter 2. If I haven't mentioned it prior to this, it was because I didn't think it was as important as other things that need to be mentioned first, because moving something is very easy. It's very easy to say, oh, put that in the spot. But I do think research questions do need to go at the end of chapter 2, right before that chapter summary paragraph, which you probably have. So again, I was kind of looking quickly at your section. So you have your methods and procedures. This section is too broad. You're kind of it's kind of summary, as I say somewhere. You're doing way too much here, when really your job is to get us focused really quickly on what your study is. Your study is qualitative. It's a qualitative case study, and now you're going to take us through the different pieces of a qualitative case study and the decisions you're making as you design yours and what you're going to actually do. Okay, so let me just quickly then scrub through this. So, okay, you've got your research design. There's problems with this section, which if you read it, you'll see. Your context of the study, that's good to briefly mention it here, and I put a note about that here. But things are a little bit jumbled because, like, I think these comments can go in the interview and observation section, as I note. I think that this context piece is really about sampling. And so again, those headings are so important. If you look over here in this example, you see there's a spot where that sampling info is going to go, and you don't really want to put it anywhere else. You know, if you're talking about interviews, you want all that information in one spot. Don't mention it throughout chapter 3 unless you really have to, but don't be giving me core information about how, you know, what kind of interview it is, what's the protocol, the interview protocol you're going to use, what's the setup for how you're going to interview. It's kind of jumbled. Like I think maybe some of your interview information pops up somewhere else when you're talking about like assent and consent of students, like under recruitment maybe. So just kind of break it down into tiny little parts, just like I make a kind of a joke where I say, you know, it's like you're explaining this to a computer. How would you explain this piece by piece, and only give the piece that is needed at that time? Try to do that as much as you can, where you put everything in its proper place, because it just, if you don't, it becomes redundant. It becomes confusing. Like, okay, what is this section about? And that kind of thing. Okay, so let me continue to scrub then. Sorry, I keep distracting myself. Proposed data collection procedures, you got sample, then you've got setting and sampling frame. But see, that word setting is kind of like this previous word of context. See how those sections, I'm not sure what each section does. And then sampling frame, I think that term is more of a statistical term that you don't need to even bother using. And I think as I read this paragraph, I feel like it's still just, you're still talking about sample, maybe. And then you talk about role of the researcher, and then I think you go into more stuff that I don't think is role of the researcher. Well, it is related for sure, this stuff that I've circled here, but I think maybe you just need, it could be that when you reorganize this that you have an IRB kind of section. I don't know. It sort of just needs tighter organization in terms of where you are putting things. Recruitment. I say I like that term, however, sampling may cover it. I know in my research, I tend to like to talk about site sampling, like how did I choose the, how did I select the site, the school district, the school, the classroom, and I talk about participant sampling, and I usually do these in separate spots. I may not have done it in this particular paper, but sometimes, like if you have a little piece where you're talking about a context, you might be talking about how did you sample that site, and then when you're to your participant section, you can talk about in a part of that you can talk about how did you choose those participants with that purposive sampling that you mentioned in your paper. Okay, so your recruitment section, implementation and data collection. Okay, so implementation, I don't know, I would just put data collection, and under that you want, yeah, I'm looking over my example as well. Again, there's not just one way to do it. So I'm not going to say you must do this, but and I know you like to sort of figure things out too. So why don't you just take a look at this and just try to get it a little more organized and everything in its proper place. Proposed instrumentation. I marked out the word proposed because I want you to have more confidence in what you're doing. So we know it's all proposed. We know that. We know that you aren't sure that things will work out with like gaining access. That's okay. You write it a little more confidently, like you will gain access, and that this instrument is what needs to be done. So just remove that word proposed. Non-response error. I liked this section. This here on your A, B, and C, there's a couple of issues with this list, and I'm just recommending you review APA on bulleted and numbered lists. I guess this is a numbered list. Make sure you're doing it right. But the other thing about it is the list is not parallel. When you have a list of any kind, it needs to be parallel. So in the first phrase, you say bring awareness, blah, blah, blah. So in the second phrase, here on B, then it should start with a verb in that tense. So it could be increase parental awareness, increase equity in the school. It needs to be parallel to what you've got started in A, or A needs to be made parallel with B. But see how B is written in the researcher hopes to make parents, and that's not parallel with bring awareness. And then item C is the researcher also hopes at doing this research. So as you can see, B and C are actually parallel. They're both like these complete sentences where you're saying the researcher hopes, but A is not parallel. And I think that A is actually more in the spirit of a bulleted or a numbered list. So if you're going to be doing these complete sentences, then there's no need to have a numbered list. So as you can see, there's a few issues. Like you have to decide, is this a numbered list or is this a bunch of sentences? Okay, continuing then. Measurement error. I don't think measurement error is a qualitative concept that would belong here. I would just probably get rid of it. Like I make this point where you're talking about how you're going to consistently ask the same questions of the participants and document the responses in the same manner to maintain consistency. That's great, and do that as much as you can, but also there will be riches with individual students who will tell you things that only one student will tell you. And even those things are important in a qualitative study. Just because not everybody said this one comment doesn't make it unimportant. And so that's the cool thing about qualitative, is that you can actually highlight things that even one person said one thing that reveals an insight that maybe has never been said before, but that actually kind of holds the key to something. On this section, this triangulation section, well, it's kind of short, but with it, your subjectivities should probably be in that same area because it's related to how you handle your bias. Your proposed data analysis plan, this is good, but it's sort of software focused, and that's not the impression you want to give. You want to actually kind of lead with the actual research process. Thematic analysis is probably a really good way to call it, although I looked in my Merriam book and she doesn't call it exactly that. She doesn't call it thematic analysis, but it's the process she describes is thematic analysis, and I have linked to I've provided you a link to Brown and Clark on thematic analysis, because they do a really good job in this article. Even though it's for psychology, they do a really great job of just teaching what is thematic analysis, and they don't even really pull in psychology that much to it. It's not like it's great for exactly what we're doing. So that's a great explanation of it. I also have this book, and it's got a chapter 4 in it that's all about how you do thematic analysis, and it includes Saldana's approach, and I'm happy to scan that when I get back from Texas in a week and send that to you if you want. And that would be a good source for like how you kind of help beef up this section and just explain it a little more. You don't want your software to limit your approach. So when you lead with the software, it sounds like the software is going to limit your approach and how you're doing it. So that's what you want to be careful of. The software is secondary. It is important to mention it, but it is secondary. Okay, here's more credibility, trustworthiness, dependability. But look, you had this triangulation up here, and I think that belongs with this credibility, trustworthiness, dependability. I think that those are related concepts. They should be together. The subjectivity should be together. And I can see my scan actually did a really good job, so let's roll with it. For the most part, it looks like everything is pretty clear. You know, I mark through things and try to write words above them. Like here, I'm marking through gaining understanding, delete that and capitalize the this, remove the word data. You know, there needs to be an apostrophe there, add an S there, remove has, change it to have, add an apostrophe there. So it should be pretty clear what I'm telling you, but kind of read just line by line. I would start with the feedback here and then just start from the top of here. All right. Thank you, Georgia. Have a great weekend.